Miracy.
So, practicality is something that is often missed when an entrepreneur's chasing their dream because they get so passionate and so purposeful, especially if you're a coach, that they forget that it is still a business. It is still a career that you are practicing.
Do you yearn to peel back the curtain on what it truly takes to excel in your coaching business without sacrificing the elements that lend life its deepest meaning? In this episode, we're plunging into the essence of entrepreneurship in ways you've never imagined before. I'm Melinda Cohan, and you're listening to Just Between Coaches. I run a business called the Coaches Console, and we're proud to have helped tens of thousands of coaches create profitable and thriving businesses. This is a podcast where we answer burning questions that newer coaches would love to ask a more experienced coach. Today, we're looking at how you can use your innate strengths to build a coaching practice or business that's not only successful, but also filled with joy. Coach Ajit Nawalkha is joining me today for this conversation. He's a mastermind in transforming passions into thriving businesses. He's the co founder of Evercoach by Mindvalley, the premier platform that's propelled over 140,000 coaches, teachers, and educators towards achieving their full potential. He's helped startups to scale up to 10 million in revenue. As an acclaimed author, the Book of Coaching and the Business Book of Coaching, they've empowered over 10,000 readers to launch and elevate their coaching careers. He's also the podcast host of Master Coaching. Welcome, Coach Ajit.
Thank you for inviting me, Melinda. Excited to be talking to your tribe today.
Well, I know that when we've had conversations in the past, big things come from it. So I have no doubt we're going to have fun with this one. Before we dive in, would you share a little bit of your background with our listeners?
Absolutely. So I've been coaching for almost 20 years. I grew up in humble beginnings in India. And as I was growing up, because I didn't have abundance of money per se, or my family didn't have abundance of money, but we had abundance of love and abundance of access to people that could be great mentors and coaches and educators, if you may, in my life. So early on in my life, I realized that while I don't have the right resources for somebody to be successful, I had some access to people that I could outreach to that could be my guides. So I was exposed to the idea of leadership with curiosity instead of leadership with here's what you should do versus what is it that we could do. At that time, coaching wasn't a thing or wasn't a popular thing in India. And because of those reasons, I never labeled it coaching. But what I realized is some of the best leaders I met along the journey were people who acted as if they were coaches. When I was 18 years and I joined a student organization, the leaders acted like my coaches. They invited me to conversations. They were curious about why I thought the way I thought, challenged me when I needed to be challenged. They supported me through books and conversations and trainings and so forth. And my life really turned a big corner 2008 when I went from India to work for a small company in Malaysia called Mindvalley. And Mindvalley today is known as a really big enterprise. But at the time, we were operating out of a house with like 5 employees. So we were a really small company, acting mostly like an agency to other phenomenal trainers and educators and coaches. And that exposed me to the idea of personal development and transformation. It gave me access to a lot of individuals who had developed great methodologies like the Silva Method or Bob Proctor or Lisa Nichols. Mindvalley, it's probably one of the most dominant voices of personal transformation, personal growth today in the world. These coaches completely transformed my life in the next 5 or 6 years. My abundance soared from being an intern in 2008. I was running the company in 2014. I was the CEO of the company. We had built a company from a few $1 million in revenue to almost $45 million in revenue when I was running the company. So we were doing phenomenal. At that time, I had a dark night of the soul, you can say, because sometimes when you get so focused on building wealth and abundance, you forget that life's more than that. When you have the wealth and abundance, you kind of sit back and go, hold on, where did I miss the point? I missed the point of living. It's not about how much money you have in your bank account. That's a nice thing to have, but it's also great to have a great relationship. It's also important to have great kids if that's a desire that you have, or great health and great body and great mind and peace of mind and connection to oneness and so on and so forth. And so I asked myself, am I happy with achieving all the dreams that the world wanted me to achieve? Well, I was a CEO at 31. That's not keeping me happy. I don't feel fulfilled while I'm doing very meaningful job and a meaningful work. And I really loved doing what I was doing. it had taken away from everything else in my life. So I questioned it. As I questioned it, I kind of stepped down being the CEO of the company, and I hired a lot of coaches, honestly, because then I really needed help in every area of my life, from who I was as a person, real discovery of it, to what kind of relationships or what is even a good relationship, to how to reclaim my body, how to let go of my addictions, for pretty much any area of life that I questioned. And in that journey, I realized that while coaches were phenomenal individuals adding great value to the world, they, in my perspective, were taught the wrong lesson of marketing makes the business thrive. In my perspective, it's your product that makes the business thrive. That's how I built any of my businesses. So that was my clear perspective. And that led me to first say, I can't help anyone if I don't understand their inner world. And so first I started coaching. And that's how my career started as a coach professionally. Before that, I was acting as a coach, the leader within an organization. And then from that, I built a company called Evercoach, which is the platform that you talk about, which is now being acquired by Mindvalley. So now it's Mindvalley Coach. I started a platform that focuses on building a great career because you are a phenomenal coach, not because you learned the marketing gimmick. If you meet a famous coach, they're famous for about 3 to 4 years and then they disappear because what they really mastered was a trick in marketing. They never really mastered what really matters, which is to be able to transform lives. That was what led to Evercoach. That's what has been my journey until now of first being a coach, being able to create really great transformations for people and companies. And in that journey, also being able to build a organization like Evercoach or Mind Valley Coach right now, where we certify about 10,000 coaches every single year across different modalities.
What you just said, I just want to pull that out because it really is amazing. It's also freeing. Building a great career because you're a great coach. You talked about a lot of these coaches' names pop up for several years and they disappear, and then the new ones come and then they're gone because they mastered a trick of marketing. And then that didn't work anymore, or they stopped doing it. They're not around anymore when we should be mastering transformation. As soon as you said that, it's like a freeing aspect. I think you're right. So many people get caught up in, I've got to figure out this marketing. Now, we have to do marketing. We do have to understand it. We do have to understand how to talk about what we do and how to connect with others in that conversation. But it's really when we are good at the thing that we're good at and when we can demonstrate that. And then when others can demonstrate that on our behalf, like it speaks for itself. We don't have to figure out all the tricks and fads and complexities about marketing. So it was just very freeing. I just wanted to really land that for our listeners.
The tricks of marketing doesn't build a business that's sustainable. It builds a short-term cash flow cycle. And sometimes that's important for certain businesses and companies. And I'm not denying that's important part of the puzzle, but it's not the thing that makes successful businesses. If you are building a career, which I'm hoping anybody in the field of coaching is, I understand it's a career. It's not a temporary passion. It can be a full-time career, more lucrative than anything else you've done in your life. I'm a testimony to that. I'm sure Melinda is a testimony to that. So you absolutely can have a lucrative career that makes you way more than any other job opportunity or business opportunity that may be there, but it still has to be pursued like a career. You don't become a doctor and say, you know what, I'm going to get great at marketing myself as a doctor.
Yeah. Said no doctor ever.
You become a great doctor is why people come to you. That's why people keep coming back to you. That's why you don't have to think about your marketing gimmick. You do marketing, you're running a business, you do run P&Ls, you do have a team, you do have a staff. All of that is true. And you're successful because you're good. And then everything else helps that entire ecosystem. And that's the same with coaching. There is no point building a great marketing engine if you're not going to get good at what you do.
Yeah.
And there is
Yeah.
no marketing that will sustain over time if you're
Right.
not good at what you do.
And that's what I love about what you're saying because a lot of people, they'll find that marketing thing that works for them, whatever strategy it might be. Maybe it works for months, maybe it works for a number of years. And then all of a sudden it's like, why isn't this working anymore? And those that only know that and only focus on that, that's when they're done. It sizzles out and fades out. But those that really focus on the transformation, they can evolve with new trends or different insights or how their business is evolving and they can stick around, right? We're celebrating 20 years next month. I love that word that you're using, the sustainable business. Because, when I ask new coaches, how long do you want to be in business? Do you want to be in business at least 2 or 3 years? And they're like, yes, 30 years, longer. I want this to be my legacy. And so it is the long game that we're playing, and we have to understand this approach. And when you have mastered that transformation and have provided that transformation, and somebody has these breakthroughs and are getting these results and outcomes, and they're telling their story about that, that speaks a million words to what you could speak in any kind of marketing or any kind of thing that you put out there. And we can't lose sight of we have to be great at what we do and we have to be great at providing transformation.
Absolutely. So true.
Now, your latest book, Live Big: The Entrepreneur's Guide to Passion, Practicality, and Purpose. I want to use that as a framework for our conversation because I love a lot of what you've put into this book. And I just kind of want to pull out some of the pieces. In your book, you talk about the misunderstood aspect of passion in entrepreneurship. Can you expand on what true passion looks like for coaches and entrepreneurs and how it differs from the common misconceptions?
Absolutely. We are all multi-passionate human beings. And there is no sense in saying there will be one passion that we'll always have, and that's the only passion that we'll have. Most of the passions that are sustained over time are passions that you have had in one way or another for decades, for whenever you're listening this. It may have been showing some signs when you were a kid. It may show some signs when you were in your early careers. It may show some signs even today. And usually that passion is the foundation of what you build your coaching on. For example, if I have to just give my example, just to elaborate on what it really means. I have always been curious about patterns. Even as a child, I was always curious about why does something happen? So even when I would study history books, most people would go, let's cram that information. At least that's how it was in India. Find out what war was fought at what time. I would tell history books to myself as stories. It's like, here is something that happened, and here's why it happened. Here's what this person was thinking. So I'll make a story out of otherwise a boring textbook, right? I was curious about why something works, which is why I got really good at math and physics and chemistry. If you can figure out why, you can solve any problem in these subjects. So my curiosity has always been towards why, right? What makes it work? What makes it tick? That always has kept me curious about patterns across sometimes unrelated domains. And because of that, my curiosity leaned into something like coaching. You may be really good at observing patterns. You may be really good at people, which tends to be the case with a lot of coaches. That's really good. They love talking to people. They love understanding people. They love supporting people. They feel gratified when they support somebody. They've always been the person people call, the listening ear. They've always been the person that people look up to or go to when they're in trouble, right? They're the elder of the society, even if they're not assigned as an elder to the society, right? Or their culture or their family, if nothing else, right? These are some fundamental characteristics that informs you that you've always somehow played that role. You just didn't show up one day saying, I'm going to be this person, right? So there are patterns to your passion. If you can look for that pattern, you will find what's your most powerful passion, right? So let's say most cases in coaches, your passion probably is people or some version of that, right? And if that's the case, that makes the foundational passion of why you will do something. But at the same point of time, one must understand that because you're a human being, you're going to be passionate about other things, but in seasons. For example, there is a lot of input coming to you. There's a lot of feedback coming to you right now about AI or artificial intelligence or social media is the way to get clients. If you're getting all that input, suddenly a part of your passion will get triggered. For example, if you're a people person, but you also love theater and acting, you'd suddenly go, oh, I would love to do social media videos, right? You have triggered a part of your passion that has been dormant until now because there was no way to express it. But the expression or how you express is what's the key. And you need to understand that differentiation versus social media being your passion. What tends to happen as a mistake is we just go, oh, social media is my passion without actually understanding why. Where is it coming from? And because we don't know where it's coming from, we do social media for a little bit and tell me if this is true for you as a listener. You did your social media videos, you did a 30-day challenge, you posted every day, and then nothing happened. So 30 days later, you stop posting. I've seen this pattern again and again because there was a part of your passion that got triggered. You never inquired. You just thought this action is what I'm passionate about, but you're not passionate about the action. You're passionate about something underlying the expression of that passion. If you understand why it's coming, it's more possible for you to extend that expression of the passion. And that's what really makes businesses and successful coaches. It's not that you can do something, but can you do it for a long time? So know that you're going to be multi-passionate and don't discount it. Don't hold back on it. There's no reason for you to. If you contain that, that actually builds more frustration because you feel underexpressed. And then one day you blow it all up, right? This is the classic case of a coach saying, I'm going to do coaching business No, I'm not going to do a coaching business. I'm a teacher now. They blow up their coaching business because they feel underexpressed. Instead of saying, how do I sustain this expression by saying, while I am coaching one on one, can I start a group coaching business? Can I also be a speaker? Instead of adding to their career, they destroy the previous career and start doing the next one. So stay with your curiosity of asking, what is the underlying reason why I'm passionate about something that may feel like my passion on the surface for now, so you can sustain it over a long period of time, and also understand that you are a multidimensional human being. There is no way that you will not have multiple passions. You absolutely will have it, and it's a good thing.
Yeah, it's a great thing. I call it the through line. When we can identify that through line that runs through all the seemingly unconnected things. And there's often ways to bring all those elements to the people you're working with. And just to test my understanding, correct me if I'm wrong. So, part of my through line or the underlying passion is helping people be their best. That's one element of the one way I express it. I love helping people be their best. And another way that it's expressed for me is I love taking the seemingly complex things and making them simple, easy, and doable. And so everywhere that I go, before I was a coach, I was an interior designer. Never knew I was going to be in the world of coaching. But the reason I loved interior design, I worked with corporations and I helped them with workplace efficiency so their people could be their best. They could do their best work, get the outcomes they wanted. Then in comes coaching. I've also done a lot with yoga teacher training, Koya certifications, and all these different modalities because they're different expressions of how I can help somebody be their best because it's that through line for me. And so I really love what you said. Find the patterns that run and embrace the multi-passionate aspects of ourselves. So many people try to put themselves into a box, and then all these elements aren't being expressed, and like you said, they blow up and it gets out of control, and that's what I see so often with new coaches. They'll try something for 30 days or for a short period of time, like, "Oh, didn't work," and then they just give up on it. But when they stick with it and not give up too soon, that's where that hockey stick of success begins to happen. I love the patterns of the purpose.
Now, so the invitation, just to follow up to the last point that you made, is the invitation is to find your cutoff point, or what's the point where you are actually going to give up on something. Most of the time, people give up too fast because they don't actually know what's the season and time and matrix that will tell you that you should give up, right? Because a lot of times people will go, "Oh, I tested this for 30 days." I was like, "But how do you know that you actually gained because of it or not?" And they haven't thought about it. They just simply said, 30 days, I don't have as many followers as Ajit, it failed. No, even if he's not actively doing social media until recently, he had somebody doing it for a very long time. He has had that account for 7 years with consistent posting. He may have 150,000 followers. You're not going to get there in 30 days, right? So, and the challenge is that's how people compare. Unfortunately, is they go, you know what, that person's been doing it and their numbers look like this. My numbers don't look like this, means I should quit now,
Yeah.
right? Because I've tried 30 days. But you forget that the person that you're looking at has done that one thing probably for 3 to 5 years to
Mhm.
get to the place that they got to. And they still feel that they're behind too. They're not thinking, "Oh, I'm
Right.
crushing this game.
Right.
I'm under optimized. I'm not delivering to what I want." They're saying the same dialogue that you're saying. They just have a better management style to that dialogue, because when that dialogue comes up for them, at least I can speak for myself, is that most likely what would happen is the dialogue would come and I'll be like, yes, and this is a part of the journey. I don't have to compare to somebody else. It is my journey. The only comparison, the only measuring stick I have is me versus me. And if I made progress and I enjoyed during the journey of that process and enjoyed the growth that I got, became a better person as a human being, well, that's all the winning is. The winning is not in the outcome, the winning is in the process.
Yeah. And that comparison, that's a tricky one for entrepreneurs. I say it a lot, don't compare somebody else's front of the house to your back of the house. You've got to understand the correct information to make decisions and judgments. But that comparison thing, like, that's a tricky one for me. It has been for 20 years. I have to really be diligent and intentional about not letting it get the best of me. What would you say to people? How do you manage that? How do you manage that comparison game?
Yeah. What I found helpful for myself and my students and my clients is that whenever there's a comparison, I like to ask, what is joy for me? What is fun for me? What is exciting for me? What is happiness for me? What I found and I'm sure you have as well, Melinda, because you know a lot of wildly successful people, is I've had a chance to sit down privately with wildly successful people as well. And they suffer from the same, since nobody's far from it. You can think of people who may seem the most saintly and they have the same challenge. You don't have to feel alone about this. What I have found is our definition of what success is so different because there's so many different reasons.
Mm-hmm.
See, a lot of people who especially chase the following, the need they have is different than the need that I have, for example. The need they have is for love and appreciation and being seen, right? And their being seen is validated by the eyes of the world. Nothing wrong with it. Everybody's wired different, everybody has a different story. For me, that's from my family, that's from my friends. So I would never outperform them, and I don't have to because I see the world different than they see the world.
Mm-hmm.
The moment we realize that and we start putting our own measuring sticks to things, we would recognize that we are better off in our journey and will always be worse off in somebody else's journey because it's their journey,
Mm-hmm.
right? So the question I like asking myself is, if I would chase someone, isn't it that I will always be behind? Because I'm chasing someone, right? So I always get to play second, but I never get to play first because I am chasing somebody else's dream. And it did happen for me. Maybe that's why I'm more present to it now, is I chased the dream of my family. And that's why I became the CEO of Mind Valley quickly. I had to prove that I was not going to get formally educated and I would still be wildly successful. I was CEO of a company at 31. That dream took me to the dark night of my soul because that wasn't my dream. That was my parents' dream.
Yeah.
And that's what happens when you chase somebody else. You realize that you chased somebody else's dream and not your dream. So the clearer you get about your own dream and make that the measuring stick, the easier it is for you to resolve that
Yeah.
comparing,
Yeah.
easier to deal with that devil because it is going to be there. And that's one more thing to recognize is it's not going to go away. I love this way of explaining it. Imagine you're in a car and all your emotions and all your perspectives are driving with you. You have to decide who's in the driving seat
Mm-hmm.
because they're the one who's going to set the pace. They're going to set the direction. They're going to make sure if we are hitting something or not hitting something, right? So if comparison Connie is going to drive the car, we're probably going to the wrong destination
Right.
at the wrong pace, most likely.
In the wrong car.
We're gonna burn off all our fuel. Your
Right.
excited Johnny, which let's say is your honest self, is driving the car. Now suddenly you are going to the right place at the right pace in the right way without burning yourself out in a way that you would actually enjoy the ride and forget about the destination because once you get to it, pretty much is always celebrated for a day.
Yeah.
And that's pretty much it.
And I find that when we live like this, the destination doesn't become a fixed thing that you're watching all the time. It's just a natural byproduct of how you're living and showing up. It's like, oh, yeah, that's there. Instead of this big fixated destination that has to be fully celebrated. It's just like, oh, yeah, pass the salt. It's there. It's just as easy as that.
There's a beautiful thing that I read somewhere, and I don't remember the author of it, but what they acknowledged is your favorite moments, or your biggest dreams are going to be just your life in about 5 years from now.
Mm, mhm.
And that's true for me.
Yeah,
I've experienced it every day.
yeah,
It's like,
yeah,
this is my biggest dream. And I'm like, this is just my life. I don't know what you're talking about.
right, it's normal. Now, in your book, you also introduce the matrix of practicality, which I love that phrase. Can you explain how we as entrepreneurs and coaches can use this framework to navigate and overcome tough challenges?
So, practicality is something that is often missed when entrepreneurs chasing their dream because they get so passionate and so purposeful, especially if you're a coach, that they forget that it is still a business. It is still a career that you are practicing. And when you practice a career or a business, you must understand that there are variables to it. For example, one of the classic cases that happens with coaches is they pretty much do everything in the business, right? They pretty much are booking the appointment, they're doing the enrollment conversation, they're prospecting, they're making their content, they're going out networking, they're doing everything in the business. And that's a trap because that means you are a solopreneur and that means you don't really have a business. You have a glorified job
Mhm.
where you are maybe setting the hours, but honestly, you're probably setting more hours than you would have gotten in a job because now the stressors come home. They're not staying at the job. It's your money and your income and everything is governed by you. There's a big possibility that it effectively means you're always chasing more and more and more and more. That effectively means the brain never shuts down, the phone doesn't shut down, the computer doesn't shut down. That effectively means you're in an insanely glorified job where the chase is, can I make a dime more by working several more hours? Right? That shows that you've not taken a practical approach to business. You're just passionate about what you do. You're just purposeful about what you do. Nothing wrong with it in principle, but really terrible way to live. Right. Because then you don't realize it when it's happening. You realize it about 2, 3 years in. And that's one more cycle of burnout that coaches experience. They go, you know what? I just threw everything away because it was just so hard. It's not hard. It's actually just practical. If you would make it practical, it will be very easy. So say, for example, I like to give this tool, and there are many in the book. I'm just giving one because I know it will be useful for anyone that's listening. Let's say you were making 100,000 a year, right? And if you're making 100,000 a year, you theoretically should work no more than 40 hours a week for no more than 40 weeks, right? You should take some holidays. It's your business. So if you're making that money, if you don't ask yourself, what are the tasks that I can deploy to someone else? So I only work 20 hours a week. You're not building a business. You're staying constrained to your solopreneur adventure, which may sound fascinating in the first year, but third year onwards, it becomes taxing and you start to lose your joy of doing business. Right. So ask yourself, if I am making $80 an hour, can I find somebody to do A, B, C, and D that cuts about 20 hours of my week for 20 bucks an hour? I may be making less amount of money per hour, but I still am generating more time freedom for myself. And that's what practicality of business is. People wonder, how do you build a coaching business that is so successful? My businesses do several 8 figures at this point, but my coaching career, just me coaching, which I only do with like 5 companies in a year, is about anywhere between 500 to 700,000 a year. And I pretty much don't do anything for the business. I only coach. Everything else is done through systems and done through people. So you either automate, delete, because you realize a lot of the things that you do actually are meaningless for the business, or you delegate. By automation, there are tons of tools now using AI, especially, that you can just automate those tasks. You can also automate through technology. You can delete because you'll find that lots of tasks that you think are so important, if you don't do them, nobody gives a shit,
Hmm.
honestly. Nobody actually cares. And lastly is delegation. You can always delegate by hiring people that you pay less than what your hourly income is. Until the time you can do that and you can do it enough times, you'll find that you will have 4 or 5 people in your business. Theoretically, to me, a coach wouldn't be working anything more than 20 hours to make 500,000 a year. And it's very, very doable. And 500,000 in profit probably a year.
Yeah. And when I think back to the 20 years that I've been doing this, learning the art and skill of delegation was one of the hardest hurdles for me to get over. I was able to build the business with just about me and my business partner. We were on every dot in the org chart and we built it up to 6 figures. But to get beyond that, I had to learn that lesson. What got you here won't get you there. And it had to be like really ingrained. And I had to let go of the control freak in me and the perfectionist in me. I had to realize that there are other people in this world that can actually do this job better than me. But it was a good hurdle to overcome. I love the title, The Matrix of Practicality. It's like, oh, yeah, just the practical aspects of business. Let's take care of them. But we got to remember to take care of them.
Absolutely. I know coaches that are right now on the journey will also identify with this at some point. There is a point where you go, why am I doing this?
Yeah.
Like, what's the point?
Yeah.
When you ask that question, know that the reason why you got into that question probably is because you were just chasing and running because you thought that's how you win the race. And that may have been the old model, but that's not the truth anymore.
Mm-mm.
We're intellectual workers. The number of hours you put in the businesses does not equal to the growth you will have in the business.
Yeah.
It actually is completely untrue in modern times. I believe as a coach, about 50% of your time should be dedicated to just learning and training,
Hmm.
reading books, taking programs, doing any form of education, because it reflects into that 1 hour that you give to your client.
Yeah. And I think a lot of people, they don't factor in joy as a part of the ROI. They get stuck in that old model where it's like money is my ROI, but time freedom, joy, energy, emotion, spirituality, like all of those are elements that should be factored into the ROI. It doesn't mean that if I factor these in, then I'll make less money. No, you can still make a lot of money and factor all that in, but don't overlook it for sure.
You're absolutely 100% right on that, Melinda. that you can have as much money you want without working as many hours. It's a old story that you need to work long hours to be able to make money. Not in our profession. Maybe in other professions it's true, but in our profession is the quality of outcome that you can create in 1 hour with your client would defines how much money you can charge for it. That's what really matters. It's not about how many hours you spent with them.
Right.
The second thing to understand and to always inquire is what is more money? What does it even mean? What are you going to do with it? Let's write it down. Most people just chase more money because they are insecure in what they really want from life. Money chase is the easiest chase to have because it gets you validation from everyone around you. You have to do no inner work. You can be an absolute dick and make more
Yeah.
money. Let's be very real. And we have met those people, right?
Yep.
That's what made me really committed to coaching because I met a coach that was an absolute dick. There is no reason this person with this attitude should be a coach and should be talking to people. He said some racist comments to me, and I was like, "Who are you? You're a coach. I actually was looking up to you before I met you. Now I meet you, and I don't want. You're the wrong example for this industry."
Yeah.
Once I realized that, it became a great chip on my shoulder that helped me build what I built, which I think is okay. But at the same point of time, you gotta ask: you want to be the richest asshole who has no real understanding of self and no real understanding of what is it that they really mean to do in the world, or do you rather do that chase for joy and make as much you need to make?
Yeah.
Right? You don't have to be a rich asshole,
Right.
right? That's in my mind or in my soul is a wrong pursuit. I never had that pursuit. I don't have that pursuit today. I make a lot of money, more money than I ever imagined in my life, but I don't have to be an asshole for it,
Right.
right? So who cares if you made a dime more or a dime less?
Yeah. Now, speaking of kind of that inner work, the creativity, you have this analogy for tapping into creative energies. Would you share with our listeners how this metaphor applies to fostering creativity and resilience in our business?
So what tends to happen with a lot of us is because of that culture of work hard and work long and work tirelessly, we think, I'm going to keep working and then I'm going to record these videos after that. And then I'm going to go write my book and then I'm going to do this and then I'm going to do that. And what tends to happen when you are exhausted is you never really come up with something new. And if you think about it, you would notice that your best ideas always come at the time when you're not doing anything, right? And if you notice, I'm sure it's true for you as well, Melinda, your best ideas that make you the most money or create the greatest impact are when you were going for a walk, when you just finished a conversation with a friend and then you're driving back from that walk, when you're about to take a shower or you are in the bath for more than 5 seconds.
Yep.
So it's those quiet moments where creativity truly has a chance to channel through you. Your best business breakthrough, your best idea for your life is probably
Yeah.
just a long shower away, just sometime taking a spa afternoon away. And when you do that, you may find that exploration, that expansion you're looking for may just strike at that time. So
Mm.
give yourself that space so creativity can flow because creativity happens in between gaps.
Creativity happens in between gaps. That's where it lives. I love bringing that to the forefront. Is there anything that I haven't asked you about living big or anything that you want to talk about as it applies to coaches?
What I would love to bring to everybody's attention, because it seems to be a challenge with a lot of coaches, is they get lost in this idea of purpose. They get lost in the idea of, oh, I need to know what my purpose in life is. I like to create a distinction for anybody in that place right now. What I have found after several thousand conversations at this point, that purpose happens in one of two ways. One is some of us just wake up to it. Like we just get bestowed by it and we're like, whoa, that's my purpose. And we chase it. And that tends to be maybe 2% of the world's population. I maybe met one person who said, I just woke up and I knew this is what I meant to do and still kept doing it for a very long time. Like I met a lot of people who say I woke up to meant to do something and a year later they were not doing it, which effectively meant didn't wake up with it. This is just one of the feelings they had. It wasn't the truth. But I met maybe one person who's really pursued it. Like 5 years later, 10 years later, they are still going at it. So I'm like, all right, you definitely woke up with that purpose and you're committed to it. But most of the others have always found the purpose as they were living it, or they were living life and purpose was discovered as that journey was happening. I call it living purpose. So this is the purpose that it's not bestowed on you. What happens is you are living life and you're doing things that are in moment passionate for you, and you discover something and you go, wow, this sounds amazing. I would like to chase this for the next 3 years. I like to chase this for the next 5 years. I like to chase this for the next 10 years. As you're chasing it, it evolves. That's why I call it living purpose, because it's not set in stone. It gets better with time, but it's in the same direction that you were already traveling. When I started Evercoach, my goal was to educate 1,000 coaches. That's it. That's all I wanted to do. 1,000 coaches. That's all. Last I checked, it went from 1,000 to 10,000. I hit 10,000, so now then it was 100,000. Then I felt if I really, really want to be impactful in the coaching community, we need 1 million coaches in the world, right? So you evolve, and that's why it's a living purpose. It's living, it's breathing, it's forming itself as I'm living life. I'm not waiting for the word purpose to be bestowed on me. I am listening to the voices of the universe, if I may, to be guided to it, because one day maybe I will have clarity, or one day maybe I'll be like, that was my purpose, and that's it. So my invitation to any coach right now who's questioning, hey, what's my purpose? Why am I doing this? Is don't worry about it so much. It's okay. There is no point to wait for a definitive answer. Sometimes universe has its way for you to discover it, or God, or whatever you want to call it. You will only discover it if you start to continue and pursue the journey. If you wait for it, it's not going to come to you. So choose to pursue it and hope that you will find it one day. And that's what is living purpose.
Beautiful. Well, let's summarize what we've talked about, because we have covered quite a ground. You kicked us off with leadership with curiosity as a way that you got into coaching. Being curious is one of the coolest parts of being a coach. You started talking about how coaches were taught the wrong lesson, that it's not marketing that makes the business thrive, it's your product, the transformation that you provide. And I love how you kind of gave that distinction. People can learn tricks of marketing, but it doesn't build a sustainable business, and that we've got to keep going, because what we're doing is not just a job that we have, but something that we want to do for a long period of time. We got into a great conversation about passion and finding the patterns of your passion, and that great question that you gave us, what is joy for me? We got into the matrix of practicality. Just remember that there is a practicality to business, and we've got to take care of that. And there are simple ways to do that. Business does not have to be hard. Maybe it's complex, maybe there's a lot of moving parts and pieces, but it doesn't have to be hard when you remember that matrix of practicality. And then you took us into that great concept of purpose and that distinction, and just living life in the moment. The living purpose comes forth through what you're doing. Ajit, any other parting words for our listeners?
I would love for everybody to enjoy the book. So I'm offering it away. You can just download it for absolutely free. There's no charge. You can go to downloadlivebig.com. So that's the book with lots of tools, lots of these ideas that we talked about today, and things that you can practically use at any time. And if you're a coach that is interested in learning more about how I think and how I build these models, how I train individuals, I'll also hook you up with a free webinar that me and my business partner Vishen did around our certification on life coach. And I think we can post it in the show notes or something,
Yep.
and people can go ahead and check it out. So that
Awesome.
would be my 2 offers and giveaways for you all.
Thank you so much for that. And just thank you, everybody, for listening to this episode of Just Between Coaches. A giant thank you to Coach Ajit for this amazing conversation. And you can find out more about him and get his book, downloadlivebig.com. Go there and you can download that book for free. That's downloadlivebig.com. In the show notes, you'll find that link to his webinar and other links where you can find out more about all the amazing work that he's doing in this world. Thank you so much for coming to the show.
Thank you, Melinda. Thank you for having me.
I'm Melinda Cohan, and you've been listening to Just Between Coaches. Just Between Coaches is part of the Mere CFM podcast network, which also includes such shows as Course Lab and Once Upon a Business. To catch the great episodes on Just Between Coaches, please follow us on Mere CFM's YouTube channel or your favorite podcast player. And if you enjoyed the show, please leave us a comment or a starred review. It's the best way to help us get these ideas to more people. Thank you, and see you next time.